When you think of the word loner, what are the first things that comes to mind? Usually it'll be associated with being shy, antisocial, quiet, someone that keeps to themselves, something along those lines. And those are usually things that come with negative connotations. As someone who has been called a loner way more times than I can even count, I wanted to talk today all about how I've learned to embrace that title, and as a 26-year-old now who doesn't really have friends, and by friends I mean based off of societal norms and what you see people sharing and how you think you should be portraying your life. So we're gonna get into all that. Growing up, I really didn't have friends like that, and this is important because where do you find friends? For a lot of people, that started when they were quite young, high school, elementary school. By the way, I'm using this microphone today. It's gonna be the first time I'm using it on this channel, but I mean, manifesting my podcast dreams. But anyways, I grew up without friends basically. I moved around schools a lot as a kid. You know, when you see TV shows and movies and there's the new kid that's kind of an outcast that people don't really talk to, that was 1000% me. I spent many recesses alone. I moved schools 6 times through elementary school, so that's in Canada, grade 1 to grade 7. As a result of that, I became very isolated. But even in instances when I didn't really move schools, I still felt like I never really belonged. In general, I think it's a common feeling that people have growing up of noticing your differences among your peers and then turning that into a negative thing. My household wasn't the same as a lot of my classmates, I felt like. That also made me feel like I was different and that I didn't really belong. At certain points, I was also the only Asian kid in the class, or one of the only Asian kids, and that also would stand out. So all that to say, that sense of loneliness, I know I've been through, and it's not always easy. It's not to say there weren't people that were nice and tried to make an effort, but then there were also kids that weren't so nice, and it's kind of sad that happens or can start at a young age. But you know, I'd be called names, I would be told to myself, and that was not cool. But it made me even more skeptical of people's intentions, and I kind of realized, oh, we also need to protect ourselves sometimes, and made me more careful about being open to everyone. But at this point, I kind of developed a sense of anxiety. At lunchtime, I would try to find somewhere to sit or someone to eat lunch with, and I would be walking down the hallways, and I just remember feeling sick to my stomach. All I could think about was how many people were surrounding me and that they were probably thinking about me or gonna be talking about me in a bad way. Honestly, most of this probably driven by the fact that I, was kind of not accepted for so long, was a real thing. And then it manifested itself into the thoughts in my head of people around me thinking things negatively and everything like that because I had experienced it before. So I just assumed that everyone's like that. But I still so desperately just wanted to feel like I was a part of a group and had friends. I eventually lost a lot of confidence in myself. I know most kids have like a really awkward phase of how you dress and how you present yourself, and I definitely was that. I feel like I kind of glowed up at a certain point, and it's not to say that your appearances matter like that, but I'm gonna say that I think people do treat each other differently based on your appearance, not something that I think anyone should base their relationships off of. It did help me grow into my skin more, and eventually I did start finding myself more comfortable to talk to people. I started to feel like I had a lot of things that I could go do and people to go do things with. At this point in my life, I was all about posting it all the time and just like showing that I have the best life ever, just as you do, because like that's what people do on social media, okay? I remember people even coming up and saying like, you look like you're always out, you have like things to do all the time. I felt like I never had as many opportunities to like feel like I had friends as I did, but keyword is feel like. Growing up without having close friends and like close relationships with people, and then switching to having very many people that I surrounded myself with and that I can go do things with, I actually didn't feel less alone. I still had very similar feelings about no one understanding me, still feeling like I was different in a bad way. I couldn't really be myself authentically because I was really just trying to make myself fit into the groups that I would be around, or that I would have to dress a certain way or just portray myself a certain way in order to be accepted. I will say, apart from that, I have had a handful, and I do mean one handful, of people that I would say are really, really really good friends, people that I know really have my back, but also those types of friends I would say I don't really hang out with. They're friends, but also not friends in terms of what I think people see online and feel like is a representation of having lots of friends is. But at that point in my life when I felt like I had a lot of things to do, I was living my best life, it looked like I had a lot of friends, I think, and that was so cool for me. I'd always wanted that, and here I was, I finally had it, and I felt lonely still, and I felt isolated still. I didn't feel like I could talk to these people about things past surface level, and this is no shade, but I do think there's different layers of friendships, and it took me up till that point to realize these people don't actually care about you like that. That's not what the relationships are based off of. We started being friends through going out, partying, going to events and stuff like that, and that doesn't take a lot of deep conversations or any type of care and appreciation for the other person. Not to say you can't have relationships with people that truly care about you and also go and do stuff, but I'm talking about in general from my experience and what I've seen. A lot of times it was really just we're having a good time, and these are people that I'm hanging out with to have a good time with. Nothing wrong with that. Would they be considered friends that I know I can trust and that actually care about me? No. In that sense, it really did make me still feel like I was alone, but I just didn't look like a loner anymore. Whereas before I was alone and I actually had no friends, so I was visibly to the general population deemed as a loner. Through the ups and downs of life, I realized a lot of times you don't know who you can really trust. Back to my childhood traumas, I felt I needed to protect myself and protect my peace, like at a young age. Through the years, realized that there was something to that because you don't actually know what people's motives are, and also you don't actually know what people say when you've left the room. You'll have people saying one thing to someone's face and then going off and saying something else. You'd see a post of the people together and looks like they're having the best time ever. That didn't make sense to me. If you're saying those things about other people, then what are you saying about me when I'm not around? Sorry, my battery tragically died. So as I was saying, I realized the values that were important to me in friendships. I think it goes without saying that a sense of belonging is important. We as human beings need that and need some social interaction to kind of meet our hierarchy of needs. But I just don't believe that the only way to get to that is by having a large group of friends, coming across as someone who has a large group of friends or whatever. I realized I needed to do some work to reflect on myself. You'll hear a lot of people talk about relationships that they've had to let go because it was holding them back or it wasn't allowing them to do the work on themselves. That was kind of where my head was at. Not to say that I had so many relationships I had to let go, I really didn't. But it was something inside of me that realized the best I can do for myself is figure out how to find peace and joy in being on my own and not to have to feel so desperate to have to be around people, especially if I want to go do stuff. It's okay to go and do stuff on your own. Last year I made a vlog that I think still really holds true about how to enjoy time with yourself, so I'll link that. I've been on trips by myself. I've gone to eat by myself. It can seem weird if you let it seem weird. Sometimes I'd go and do stuff because I really didn't have a choice. I didn't have other people that I felt would want to go do something with me, and in those times it would be easy to start to think about, oh, I'm so sad because I don't have anyone to go do stuff with. But if you reframe that, it's actually like I have a privilege of being able to go and do what I want to do. When I went and started to do stuff by myself, it was like, okay, there's nothing wrong with this and I'm enjoying myself, and if anyone's looking at me weird or thinking certain things about me, then they probably don't have anything better to do with their time. And as I became more comfortable in really just owning who I was, confidently doing the things I wanted to, even if it was by myself, I feel like I would have slipped back into being considered a loner again. But this time around, it didn't feel like something to be ashamed of. That's not to say that I don't wish I have more friends, but it really goes back to the things I've talked about, which is if that was more important to me than finding peace and enjoying my own peace and figuring out how to love myself and be happy with myself without the opinions or perceptions of others. So we talked a lot about kind of the past and things that I've come to realize through the years. Getting to where I am now, in 2019 I decided to move to Toronto by myself, which is across the country in Canada, so it was a pretty significant move and I really didn't know anyone here. I've talked about moving alone before in another video, which I'll I'll also link. That had to come after I'd made peace with me enjoying my own company and realizing that it's okay to do things by yourself. I did have the ambitions and dreams of coming to Toronto and making friends. As luck would have it, the pandemic happened. I don't want to blame my lack of friends on the pandemic, but I'm gonna say it. I do think it didn't help the situation. What I will say, through the process of not having anywhere to go, not being able to see anyone or meet anyone, I was noticing a lot of people start talking about loneliness, kind of a traumatic experience, like being isolated for a couple years, especially in Toronto where nothing was open really. And a lot of people started voicing their opinions on their own friendships and how they've reevaluated things, because when you take away being able to go out and do stuff, you start to realize what you're actually left with, and sometimes that's not as deep of a connection that you thought you would have had. Mind you, me on the outside of this, I was just like, okay, tell me something I don't know, because I've literally lived through this and have felt like I didn't have these friendships anyway, so I didn't lose anything is what I'm trying to say. But it was also really interesting for me to see, like, okay, I'm actually not the only one who's dealing with this or has dealt with this, but I guess no one had really been forced into thinking about their relationships that way until everything changed in the world. I basically took the time to accept what my life is now and really find peace in what I have and feeling grateful for what I have. And it goes back to like this whole desperate energy thing. For me, in my head, I was like, if people really want to make friends with you, like it'll feel like a two-sided thing. And I don't think it's too much to ask for if someone's putting in effort to try to talk to you, that you would get a response. At a certain point, I just came to realize, like, when you meet the right people, you'll meet the right people. You have to put yourself in situations where that'll happen. So I would like to get myself to go to more events or even take classes, which is something that's been on my list for way too long. But I know I need to do those things in order to put myself in environments where I can potentially meet people. That said, what I'm not going to do is make it a top priority that I absolutely need to meet these people and need to have people to hang out with in order to be happy, because I don't. If that makes me a loner, then that makes me a loner, and that's okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. And as an adult, I think, again, that's a whole other topic of trying to make friends once you're already at this stage in your life. You've got an established life for the most part, and a lot of people do have their circle of friends or people they've known for years, and so trying to fit into that is not easy. For me, I just knew that it goes both ways, and that's how it should be in any type of relationship. You think about dating, for instance. For example, if I'm messaging a guy and he's not responding, he keeps being flaky, and he doesn't really give me much information about him, then what does that say? He's not interested. So why is it not the same for female relationships? And then I would start to think about, is there something wrong with me? Like, why aren't they really giving me the time of day, even though I'm trying my best to like keep this conversation going? And at that point, I realized I can't sit around and let life pass by because I don't have friends to do things with. So if I want to do things, I'll go do them. I also recognize that I'm in a relationship, pretty long-term relationship actually. That's a relationship that, I mean, I'm very, very grateful for. Some people would be like, oh, I don't want to be a girl that only does things with their boyfriends or whatever. It's not like he doesn't do anything else apart from hang out with me. Back to this perception thing, it's like, I don't care if you think that I only do stuff with my boyfriend. It makes me happier than trying to pretend to try to be someone just so that I'll feel accepted or that I'll look like I'm a part of a group of friends or whatever. You just realize what your values are. The whole point of this is to say the perceptions of being a loner. I know I can't change the general population's opinions of that word, but if I can help you realize that there's nothing wrong with enjoying time with yourself, not having a big group of friends, and using that energy to focus on yourself and being a better version of yourself and finding comfort in spending time alone. Just going back to the beginning of this video, I've reframed how I look at it, and it's gonna feel hard sometimes, but I'm in such a peaceful place in my life, and the reality of how many friends I have hasn't really changed, but my mindset has. My biggest takeaway is you can enjoy time alone and you can embrace that, and there's nothing to feel ashamed of or to feel like you have to be a certain way because of what you see online. At the end of the day, I think it's so important to protect your peace, stick to your values, and just live your most authentic life for yourself, not about what other people are going to think of you. And if that means that you're going to go eat by yourself, own it, enjoy it. So that was my TED Talk for real this time. I've wanted to talk about this for a long time, and if you do watch a lot of my videos, yeah, I oftentimes don't really have friends that I'm surrounded by, and it's not because I'm not showing them, it's because they don't really exist like that. So if you've made it this far, thank you for watching. I would love to hear if you have any stories of your own or advice to share for people that might be in similar situations, or if you've gone through this before. I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If you haven't already liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it, and to check out other videos from me on the screen, and I'll see you guys next time.